I'm just wondering, are we going to see any French maids come across here now that we're
Ooh,
Not at my
recording?
house. Not at my
Okay.
house.
I just wanted to know. All right.
different call.
Because we're a PG rated, community.
Program. Yeah, exactly.
If they go between her camera and her, it won't be PG. It's not this much space.
This is going downhill quick.
I'm gonna mute myself now.
Yeah. Glad I could start things off on the right foot for you, Jim and Chip. Always happy to help. So Jim, you and I were talking. I think we're going to do things in a little reverse order today. And what I mean by that, folks, for joining, is that we normally, this is your first time here, I'm Andrew Morgan. I get to run this awesome community with the folks at SaaS Alerts. We normally will do an update or, just any open items, if you will, from the product team, which is who represents on the call is the CTO, Chip Buck, and his right hand, Leron apologized, title-wise escaping me at the moment, but that's typically where we lead off. Then we go customer success, if there's any updates from Ryan, and then we do some type of enablement. Well, because V3 Respond is it out, Jim, or about to be out?
So it is about to be out. It is going to be, we're sharing with this SASE call first, right? Because this is our loyal following. So there's advantages to being a member of this call, right? And we want to show people essentially what's to come. And then we're essentially on the 19th. First of all, has everyone on this call hopefully signed up for the product launch on the 19th of April? Okay.
Maybe just a quick in chat, yes or no, why for yes and for no. And if you don't know where or how to do it, yeah, there we go. Do you have a link? There we go. Maybe Michelle, you could pop that in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to essentially on the 19th of April, we're going to have our product launch. You guys are going to get a small taste today of what version 3 of Response is going to look like. And we want your feedback, right? So that's what this part of this entire community is all about. And then on the 19th, we'll share essentially what the Unify module is combined with V3 of Respond. And the power associated with that is like, it gives me chills. Adam Steinoff just sent me a quick clip, 2-minute clip of right now what is going on with inside Unify. And I'm not kidding you, Andrew, it gave me the chills.
Wow.
Jim, are you saying you had goosebumps on the top of your head?
Head, arms, legs, yes, it was all over. So it was, yeah, I'm super excited. I told Adam, like, you're making my dreams come true right before my eyes.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
All right. So if you don't, by the way, part of being this also, Jim, for the product launch, can we have people go out and share with peers like, hey, come to the product launch? Is that something they can do?
Well, for partners, yes, because the 19th is partners only. The following week, we're going to be live in Vegas at Connect IT Global, the Cassette show.
Okay.
And we're going to be on we're going to be in the exhibit hall live on that Wednesday, telling the entire universe about Unify and Respond version 3.
Okay,
So,
fantastic.
but as you know, we are very loyal to this group and all of our early adopters as assessors. So one of the things that we like to do is release everything to our partners first, right? Because you've earned that right. Like, I don't want some Joe Schmo MSP out there that's never heard of SaaS alerts or has never, even seen the product, right? Learning something for, Ben Jones or Scott Lumpkin, like, that's not right. So that's, we're very serious about that. So that's the cadence of events. So you're probably, people that have already signed up for the 19th, you're probably going to start seeing some promotions on social about what's going to happen in Vegas on the 26th. Is it 26th or whatever that Wednesday is? And you're not missing out on anything. That's just basically a replay of what we're doing the 19th for our partners.
Less the flamingo girls.
Exactly. Flamenco girls and the French maids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, perfect. Perfect. Yeah. So if you want that experience, go to Connect. Otherwise, you get the same thing on the
Yes.
product launch.
Exactly.
Okay. Just clarifying, Jim.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So just real quick, do we have Ryan with us? And if we do, Ryan, any updates on customer success?
No, honestly, I'm just excited about what Jim's talking about. And if you let me, I'd start talking about it too. So I'll defer to the people who can actually show it.
Okay, very cool. All right, so I'm going to get into where we started to go last week. We'll spend, maybe 25 or so minutes on this enablement. Yes, I will send it out to everybody. I'm going to show my screen momentarily. I worked on a little further as we ask all the time. Please, I hope this isn't one way, right? We would love your input as I kind of go through this with you. Let me share my screen and share with you what I want to what I created. Okay, so when you look at the SASE report, right, they've started to come up with, I love the way they're starting to do insights. Now, the insights are further down in this, that you're going to interject into conversations and that you can put in conversations with clients and prospects. But I wanted to take it from the perspective of one of the most, I think, challenging things, or the things that people are, for lack of a better word, don't put it as a high priority overarchingly as MSPs, and that is appointment setting and getting in front of net new customers. Is that, if you could just throw that into chat and look, Jim, because I can't see everything, but true or false? I mean, most MSPs want referrals. They're not setting cadences of, I'm going to make X amount of outbound calls. I've got KPIs around setting X amount of new customer visits, prospect visits, and X amount of net new MRR. If you do, you're in the elite, because most do not. So being on this call, I wanted to provide assets to you to make that experience easier and to give you ways in which you can get in front of those people in a meaningful manner. All right, so the number one reason we struggle, right, in anything in life is communication. Fair, Jim? Meaning, if we can't have rapport with somebody, it's really, really hard to move people through whatever you're trying to accomplish. Personal relationship, buying cycle, doesn't matter. If we're not speaking the same language, it's really challenging. Is that fair?
Totally fair. And I just want to pick up on something else you said earlier about the appointment setting. One of the things I always, people say all the time, and I say it, I'm guilty of it. MSPs aren't good at selling, generally speaking. Here's the thing. They actually are, when they're in front of a qualified prospect, they are good at selling, right? Because they're good educators. Where they struggle the most is getting the at-bats, right? Getting enough opportunities to be able to express what they know and what they can do for somebody. So that's where this comes in, which is why I love it so much, Andrew, and why last week, after the call, I was like, we have to start with this first next week, because people need to hear this, because I love what you've done.
Well, yeah, and again, let's what we're going to do is stay very high level today. And what I mean by that is we're going to stay away from talking about technology to get appointments, but we're also going to talk about, again, human behavior. I don't care what it is. Human beings don't like adversity. It's biologically built into us, into our DNA, to avoid pain. So the road less traveled, I've talked to Jim, we've had some heart-to-hearts around this, is literally purposefully suffering, right? Picking things that are uncomfortable and purposefully doing them daily. And when you purposely do uncomfortable things daily, you will be amazed about what it does for your self-image. right? And so enough about that, but I'm setting the stage for you that get uncomfortable being uncomfortable. Obviously, I didn't coin that, right? So when we speak to people, we want to have something unique, right? That's going to grab their attention, but something unique that changes perspective and that speaks to them. Most of the time, Jim, true or false, and if you guys could just say yes or no in chat, and being most business owners gloss over technology, security. It's not in their DNA. It's in our DNA. We see something, we see lack of MFA, we see lack of security controls, and we're like, but. It doesn't matter to them because it's not real until it is. It's like a hurricane or anything like that. So enough of that. So again, I provided this insight that, and this is a true insight. This is not fictitious in any way, right? That our research, and this is data I've gleaned, is from both MIT and Tulane, state that organizations with effective IT governance, and again, you're going to have to put this in a language your customer or prospect understands. Most will never understand what IT governance is, but most organizations that care about their security, their IT, have 20% higher profit margins, right? And in a study, not that this is just for you guys, right? Then I would say, what would you tell you, Scott, what would you say if I told you that, right? That would be my leading insight. But this is just edification, further edification for you guys, that another study showed that executives would spend up to 11% more on a stock for organizations that had effective IT governance. So when I'm on the phone or in front of somebody trying to get an appointment, I'm going to say, hey, by the way, our security team has found that through some simple questions, we can provide some important insights to help bring awareness to the greatest risk to revenue in your business. Would you be open to a conversation? Right? One of two things is going to happen. Yes or no? If yes, great. Close for an appointment. If no, say no worries. Jim, hey, I often come across, critical security information that impacts SaaS companies, software development companies, firms like yours. Would it be okay if I, shared that content with you time to time when I think it's relevant for you? Is that okay with you?
Yes.
And if so, what's the best way to do that, Jim?
Just send me an email.
Okay, cool. All right, so time out. Let me just get some feedback. Making sense to everybody? Any questions on that initial piece of trying to gain insight, providing insights and trying to get in front of a prospect? Questions, comments, concerns? No?
I think this is great, Andrew. And I think, one of the things that you and I have talked about as well is at some point we're going to get John Barrows, the sales trainer, on this call to take us through a lot of this from a hand-to-hand combat kind of perspective as well.
Yep. And remember, this is lots of reps, right? So we'll get into how to build your database and all these other things. We're assuming you have, this is taking the assumption you have a list, you have a targeted group that are great customers for you, and we can have other sessions on that. As Jim said, we can have JB on. Now, I'm going to take a time out, or actually going back into role play, then I'm going to show you guys a few things, guys and gals. Jim, hey, thanks for your time. Before I let you go, one of the things I noticed was, your organization had some open ports, or I noticed that some of your email addresses in your company were grabbed, exposed during a few data breaches. I'm just curious, were you aware of that? Has your MSP made you aware of that?
I don't even know what a port is. And as far as email stuff, no, I have no idea.
Okay.
How do we even know that?
Right. So let's talk about that, guys and gals. So obviously I did a poor job saying port because I need to figure, I should have clarified that for him a little bit, like what I mean by a port, right? Basically, hey, Jim, one of the keys to your office is open, is unlocked,
Mhm.
right? That's what I mean, Jim. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's
No,
talk about,
I think that's fine, by the way. You can say, I think as long as you're saying the technical term, but then kind of, explaining it in layman's terms after that, I think people appreciate that.
okay, cool. So there's some very awesome resources out there that are not inexpensive out there. Like I have a subscription to Shodan. Does anybody know what Shodan is?
Ben does. He already acknowledged it in the chat.
Yeah. All right. So look how frightening Shodan is. So we haven't had any Fortinet vulnerabilities, right? No Fortinet vulnerabilities in the last few years, right, Chip? None.
Sorry.
I can only scan every single Fortinet device on the internet. Right? And what do you think a threat actor does? They use the same tools. Right? So, and it's pretty frightening. Let me show you another one that's pretty frightening. For all the on-prem versions of CW manage, well, look what I can find.
Whoa.
So here's the point. Old versions of IIS, old versions of TLS, expired certificates. All you have to do is a touch of homework, right? Between this and if you guys know about I've Been Pwned, is it up? I thought I had it up here. Bear with me. Hold on. Let me just.
Ben just said you can use Shodan too to get visibility to webcams, open webcams.
Right. So I've been pwned, right? Another one, very easy, right? Let's just say it's ConnectWise, right? Have any of their emails ever been in a data breach, right? It's saying no, there haven't, right? But you can go through this, right? And really quickly find out, right, whether they have or haven't, right? Uber, I would imagine some have. Oh, well, bullshit. No, but
Yeah. LastPass.
I
I think it has to be the full email address. I don't know if it just does
yeah, it
domains.
does. It does. I just gotta find one for you. Oh, that's right. You're right. You have to do it by email.
There's a domain search up top, I believe you can click on if you scroll up to the top of the page.
Yeah, sorry, guys. My bad. I have to put in all this stuff. So anyway, but yes, you can easily find, like, put in somebody's email you're about to reach out to and see if it was in a data breach. Right. And you'll find, if you go to I've Been Pwned, you'll find that. So my point simply, and I digress, Jim, is between these types of tools, you have your, like, maybe you get your point where, hey, here's my top 50 prospects that ideally I'd like to get in front of. So between doing a LinkedIn Connect search where, hey, Jim, I noticed you're connected to this person, right? Ask for an intro, or hey, Jim, before I let you go, I noticed you're connected to so-and-so. And, we do some business with them. And by the way, I noticed this, and this. I feel remiss not to say something. Again, if you'd like to chat sometime about it, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
So thoughts there, Jim, before I move on.
It's amazing how many tools are out there right now. I don't know if we should call them tools, but how many data points are out there for us to glean that just make our lives so much easier, right? Like I was on a call today with one of our partners, Andrew, and she was telling me that they had a environment they were servicing that she felt very uncomfortable about.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't willing to pay for certain things. One of them was SaaS. She's like, you know what? Just so I can sleep at night. She decided she was going to put it on. It was a law firm. And then she went back, showed them the reports, right? Like 3 months later. And demonstrated all of the weaknesses in the environment, and
Mhm.
they bought everything from her.
That's
So
awesome.
it's a combination of all of these tools that we have available, or data points that we have available to us, that are great insights that just make our lives that much easier, right? Or make our jobs, I should say, easier to convey this information and convey the risk. Really, at the end of the day, right? Like, aren't we really, we're providing the insights so they understand the risk?
Yep, absolutely. And to that point, Jim, so where an email, like maybe, you know the naming convention, you have the email address of your top prospects, you find one that's in a data breach. Hey, I'm concerned because what we find is only 30%, again, come back to the SaaS report, only 30% of organizations actually have MFA fully deployed. And ironically, the executives are often ones that turn it off. Right? So why is that important? Well, the fact that your email's in a data breach means that threat actors are using those types of credentials to do campaigns to get into your network.
Mhm.
Right? Jim, I'm not trying to cause fear and uncertainty here and, tell you the sky's falling, but those are some of the insights that, we'd like to really try to look into the risk to an organization. So, again, I try and maybe close one last time.
Yeah, I mean, so this, I don't even click on links anymore from my internal team. Like, Chip sent me an email last week with a link to it. I texted him, I'm like, did you send me this email with this link? And he said, yeah. I said, okay, cool. I don't click on links anymore. And I think that was probably the proudest Chip has ever been of me. I think if he had an
I
opportunity.
literally said it. I literally said that.
Yeah.
Just made my day, Jim.
Right.
I think he would have kissed my bald head if we were in person at that moment.
Goosebumps and all.
Exactly. Goosebumps and all.
I would have at least given it a pat.
Good, Jim. So I know we only have a few more minutes here. We're going to V3, but I just wanted to share with you. Let's say you do get a meeting, right? Because I think you guys can with this kind of insight and kind of mapping things out. Let's look at what the conversation you want to, look to have. Again, as I walk through this, I'm going to stop, basically here. Notice how much, I'm speaking to them about IT or security. So Jim, can you share a little bit about, after I set the stage, make sure he's okay, we got the proper amount of time. These are all things, Jim, we agree to a half hour. You still good with that? Any other people that you'd like to bring in? Blah, blah, blah. Is it okay if I ask you just a few questions about your business?
Yeah, absolutely.
Buy-in.
Yeah.
Great. Hey, Jim, share with me a little bit about the business. Like, what maybe processes or, things that in your organization drive the most revenue? Like, talk to me about how you guys make money.
Yeah. So we recruit MSP partners. They're our channel, and we make money when they're successful adding their end user companies to our software platform.
Got it. So are there some systems that, when, it sounds like a very it sounds like you have a software team, a development team. I'm going to hold that off on the side today of how they're developing, where they're developing, all those things that are obviously very important, keeping your code base protected.
Mm-hmm.
But on the sales side of things, do you do trade shows? Do you get lists? Once you have a customer, is there, important information? Is there, things that, you have to, put into a certain CRM system that are vital to keeping your relationship alive?
Definitely. We use HubSpot, and we've got about 8,000 MSPs on a prospecting list. We've got about 730 MSP partners today that are active with us. So yeah, we market to those folks, and then we add to that database every time we go to an industry event. we come back and we upload, those names and contacts into HubSpot. So HubSpot is definitely a key platform for us.
Got it. So it's got a lot of critical information, identities in there and things of that
Definitely.
nature. So who has access to HubSpot? Like who owns quote unquote HubSpot and how many people have access to it?
So everyone on the sales team, Chip, Tracy, our controller, Keith, who runs our VP of compliance, and then everyone on our go-to-market team has access to.
Got it. And I'll just ask one or two last questions and we'll pause and let you guys, chime in hopefully. So Jim, I would ask like things like, so Jim, you ever let a salesperson, this might be one funnel. I go, Jim, you ever let a salesperson go? And if so, how do you ensure that, that maybe, some of the company information wasn't taken out during that time frame? Maybe they're going to a competitor. How do you have processes to ensure that their logins are immediately revoked? How do you know that, is MFA is this, do they get text to make sure, again, I wouldn't say MFA, do they get this other factor? What do you guys have processes around that?
We definitely have, I'm familiar with multi-factor authentication and why it's important. So we definitely have all that. To your question before, we've let salespeople go in the past, right? But I can't tell you whether or not, I guess thinking back, I don't know if they've taken any information. We certainly, the day they are terminated, the moment they're terminated, they're locked out of all of our systems, but I don't know if they took anything before that.
Got it. So we'll pause there. Like that might be something that, like, let's just say Chip's sitting in the room. Chip goes, well, yeah, they have read-only access. We've taken away in their ability to export data, but because this is a very obviously controls driven organization, like, again, they're going through their ISO, audit. My guess is, somebody chime in, like somebody like a Ben or a Sky, somebody. So, and I'll stop sharing. And again, yes, I'll share this with everybody. But what do you think the chances are one of your customers using HubSpot or Salesforce doesn't have process around that? Anybody want to chime in?
Unless we've implemented it, they don't. Unless it's something we put in place, they don't have any. They're old. Every person that's ever worked there still has an account, whether it's expired or not.
Right. And so
generally speaking, because you have that like crescendo of someone quitting or getting fired. And then after that, you're like in recovery mode, not security wise, but in like spot filling. And you're trying to make things normal again in the real world. And they're not thinking of doing something like that, or they're trying to judge their character. Well, they would never do that. We don't have to worry about that now, but when are you going to worry about it?
Right.
And not to the fact that that's then still more credentials just floating there.
Well, and that's where you go, right? Now we go down this whole, hey, for about, if your customer data got out there, that's where the role play would continue, right? Could that have would that have ramifications? Would your customers be upset? Could that impact, right, how you're seen? Could that, if that got in the hands of a competitor, if there's intellectual property, and we could go on and on and on, because when there's smoke, there's fire. If there's no offboarding process, you're in a prospect conversation, true or false. Again, anybody want to chime in as well, and doing a great job, Scott. But true or false, if there's probably no process around offboarding and making sure their accounts are revoked, what do you think the chances are that they've got really good process around their IP? Right? What do you think if they're, they do a lot of stuff up in SharePoint that there's not, how do you ensure IP doesn't go up in SharePoint? Right? And so all of this now relates back to, well, if you're a SaaS Alerts customer, right? We want to have insights that relate back to what we can do. Right. So if we find pain in, oh yeah, well, we share this in SharePoint and that in SharePoint. No, we don't track, external links or how long they're valid for, or this, that, or the other. You guys and gals get the point?
Yeah, I think in general, if people don't understand the ramifications, then it sounds chipanoia, paranoid. Just kidding, Chip.
No.
So what I mean is
Accepted.
everyone's looking at Chip's, dot I cross say, well, he's got a very good perspective of what can happen if you don't go back and you check all of these things. And it seems like you're doing more than checking if the doors are locked at night. You're doing everything. You're checking if the windows are shut, and you're doing every night. But if someone goes, there needs to be a process. And it's very true. Didn't the Oldsmar near you, Andrew, the water thing, wasn't that expired VPN login?
Mhm.
Someone that didn't work there anymore?
Yeah.
They didn't even work there anymore, but the credentials were out there and irrelevant to any type of detection because they don't work there anymore. But it was used to change the chemicals in the water of Andrew's water.
Yeah.
Andrew,
so-
let me chime in for just a second to bring this back.
Please.
This is a discussion about prospecting and leaning in and how you tap a customer. And we're missing a little gold nugget here that Scott sort of mentioned, which is if you're prospecting a customer and you ask these questions and they come back with, well, no, we don't have an onboarding process, and they already have an MSP in place. Like, I would be looking at that and saying, oh my God, this is my customer. I'm going to win them. Absolutely. Because I would pull out of my knapsack, on my letterhead, this 17-point offboarding checklist and say, well, all of our customers use this. So, this is like, give them something tangible and show them like, this is what we would do for you right here. Like, literally have it in the sales toolkit to just show them and run down. And the same goes across for any of these topics. Like, you can give the customer a visual of what it's going to look like when they come to you as a customer.
Yep, absolutely. When you get into the presentation mode, no question, Chip. Just don't take people out of pain too quickly. I always, that's a lot of times what we want to do. I agree with you wholeheartedly, but letting them sit there and then we know there's no process around this. Let's figure out, and then you can come back to your insight. What I'm talking about, remember I told you earlier on when we first met that companies that have process are 20% higher. What if we could put some process around this, commonly called governance, better control, better, safeguards for you, and really help, take your company, and drive more revenue as a result. So, all right, Jim, we'll pause there.
Sounds good. I think if everyone has that document that you,
I got to share it
Yeah.
back with Michelle. I was working on it a little more, but
okay.
yeah.
But I think some of the things on there, like, understanding what's important, what the priorities are of your customer are really important, because if you walk, and that's just, sometimes we get so carried away in what we're doing every single day, we lose sight of what's important to other people because we're so focused on what's important to ourselves. So even having that laminated and walking in and you're, having that as a reminder every time you walk into a sales opportunity, I think would be helpful in and of itself.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I'll turn it over to your Ron and Chip.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm actually going to turn it over to Amanda, who is our product manager, our Respond product manager, and let her take it from here.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. I'll start sharing my screen and show everyone. So today, what we want to give you is just a sneak peek. So for Respond V3, we've added a couple of items specifically around filtering. So I'm going to walk us through creating one of the events, and then I have a couple other ones to kind of just show you guys to walk through it. So specifically, if I want to create an alert here, that's going to be looking for file activities. I can come into my screen, I'll pick events, you'll pick the application, you'll pick for the organization. So for today's demo, I'm just going to select all and all. And then we get into the conditions, and this is where it gets interesting, right? So if I want to know if a file share has happened any kind of file share event, right? Whether that's a download or a deletion or an opened. Also, while an outside approved location has happened, I'm now able to do that. So in here, we'd look for the different file share events that we want to, or the file events that we want to look for. So something like opened, modified, deleted, etc. And then you want to pick your frequency. So if this has happened twice within the last, 2 hours or 1 hour, we can go down to as low as minutes. So you can pick what makes sense for your organization, your customer, whoever you're designing this alert for. But here's where it gets, interesting. When we press this filter button here, we can actually add more details around the events that are happening. And so here in the drop down, you can see I have event description, application ID, country, account enabled, and threat score. Specifically for this, because I'm looking for these file events that have happened with an outside approved location login, I'm going to select event description. And then you can see my operators contains or does not contain. And in this case, the value I'm looking for is outside approved location. So at this point, this alert is going to look for these file events to happen, as well as for there to be an outside approved location alert. And so at this stage, you can flip to the summary if you want of the event, but down below under your response actions, this is where you can then choose to block the sign in. You can add and also do the expire the account login. So now whoever this person is that's performing actions on these files outside of an approved location, they're not going to be able to allow to be signed in. They're going to have to reset their passwords and things like that. The alert configuration, so here, this is an example of something we would recommend being critical, but given that, you'll be customizing these for your individual customers, you can select it to be medium or low, as well as then set up an SMS or not, and move through the rest of the summary. So in end, you would end up with an event that looks like this, right? So we would have we're looking at all organizations across all accounts. Anytime a file has been opened, modified, or deleted, when there's an outside approved location event as well. And this is going to allow then for this to block the sign in, expire the account logins, and flag it as critical so that you get the critical alert. So I'm just going to click Save as Draft and kind of go back to the rules and show you a few others of the ones that I have stored here. So another example of something you could do now with this new filtering situation is if I'm looking for any event that has happened along with, there it goes, along with an outside approved location, you can see I've just scattered and I've picked a bunch of different events. Whatever events that would be a good culmination to me, that are important whenever they're outside of approved location. So it doesn't have to be specific to a file event. It can be any sort of grouping that you'd like to have, as well as contains with the outside approved location. And then again, you can flag this with an SMS. You could flag this with critical, whatever it is that you're trying to capture with that. The other items here to look at, are something like MFA off failure. And I have two different versions of this just because the conditions could, in one case signal it's critical versus another case signaling it's medium. If my computer would catch up to me. Sorry. So in these kinds of situations, though, we're going to look for the MFA failure. And so this way, the MFA failure is going to let us know. Yeah, okay. Here we go. Which one did it pick for me? The MFA off failure critical. So you can see if I skip over to my conditions, there'll be no skipping for me today, sorry. Here we go. So again, if I'm looking for the authentication failure, as well as then the event description, it contains the MFA failure. And this happens within 5 times within 15 minutes. This is where somebody is trying to get in. They've got the username and password, but the MFA challenge has failed. And so this is where, what do we want to do with this culprit and how do we want to stop it? So this is where because of this frequency and this time frame, we can flag this one as critical. and we can block the sign in so that no one's able to get in further. And then let's see if this is finally caught up to me, and I can show you one more. Yeah, so here we go. If the file share contains something that's like confidential, right? If you have a file labeled with salaries or a file labeled confidential, here's where you could create that filter set for you. So again, I'm looking for anybody sharing a confidential type file. So file share event, internal, external, how often, again, occurrence within hours to minutes. And then I've added the filter here. So the event contains the words like salary or salaries, the word conditional. So you can add multiple ors and ands with this new filtering feature so that you can get to the real subset of the documents that you're looking for, the subset of the actions that someone's taking. And again, this one I have just set up for do nothing, but as a critical event because someone is accessing sensitive information, so that it creates the trigger for the PSA for you. So that is at a high level, the show and tell for today. Not sure if anybody has any questions.
Oh, Ben, I liked your
Look
statement.
at Ben. So
Uh,
just to clarify, since Amanda had values saved in her presentation, just so everyone's really clear, the value that you can add is anything you want. This is enabling something that many of our partners have asked for, which is the ability to set up rules based upon natural language queries in the event itself. So the sky's the limit. It's literally infinite what you can put in here and use as a potential rule trigger.
Yeah. And by the way, Ben, you're sharing the punchline. So it's on the 19th, when we do their product launch, we will be announcing the next Cool's Rules Challenge. So partners will get a 1 week head start on the field. So I know Ben will be in there day one, trying to figure stuff out.
Jim, I thought we had a previous winners excluded rule. Of course they can.
Yes. Yes, of course. Everyone's welcome. Because here's the thing, the better templates we get, the more we can share with folks. So and make part of the platform going forward. So this is one of the things I love about this is going to just become completely community driven long term. And all of you are at the forefront of it, which is, I think, pretty cool. So what are people's thoughts? I'd love to get people's thoughts on Respond V3.
Anybody want to come on and give some perspective on how they might use it? Ben, could you see setting this up?
Oh, for sure. You know, I'll be in the front of the line.
We were trying to debate whether or not to release this and if anybody would notice it without really announcing it. And then we're like, no, we can't do that. It's going to be people who are going to figure this out very quickly.
Yeah. So
You just let me know when.
Ben, you're probably the most active user in Respond. So we'd love your commentary and just general thoughts on what you're seeing right now and how you're thinking you might start using it.
Sure, just being able to search for specific information is really excellent. That's one thing that's hard for us to keep tabs on is the amount of external sharing that's going on. And the only thing that we can think of doing is pretty much just like making policies so people can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But we do see occasional alerts pop up like this file was accessed from this country, and I'm like, is this intentional, or did you mean to share this salary information?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, that's good to know.
I'll
I'm
say
excited
this.
about that.
This made for a very exciting product call when they first when Liron and Amanda first brought it up, and we all started like running through questions and hypothetical ways that this would work. And for some of you folks that have, and I know there's quite a few on the call, that have said like, hey, look, we don't want to ignore this alert because while yes, it does cause some noise on occasion, every now and then it does bring up like surface something that needs our attention. This is the answer to making sure you see everything that you want to see. If you think the SharePoint alerts are noisy for file downloads, uploads, deletions, but they're all happening in the States, now you can say, hey, we can turn those to low if they're local, and we want to know if they're happening outside of an approved location. Specify specific country or locations, things like that. Coming down the road, we'll be able to get like real granular into, do we care if it's from a VPN? Do we care if it's from this specific country? So this is obviously a first iteration, but we're heading down the road of allowing you guys to build effectively your own SOAR that's automated. Like it's really exciting. This is a first step towards something that's you're not going to be able to find anywhere else.
That's awesome. I'm hoping, I mean, I love the rule contest, but my hope is that eventually we'll, have a place where people can just create rules and just, put them out there for everybody to use. Not that I don't like winning contests.
Look, we're releasing so many different features into this platform. I envision having at least one contest a year for the foreseeable future. So I wouldn't worry about running in a contest. I also envision, one of the things I thought was successful my days at Kaseya was, the app exchange that they had there, where people can share, scripts and everything. And I see us essentially doing a very similar thing here where, people just going to be able to add templates and leverage each other's knowledge.
Is there a sharing place? That's what Mike's asking, Jim.
Right now, there's not a sharing. So people send us stuff and then we review them and we promote them to templates. So that is something that will evolve over time.
We did mention on the last call that if you guys are interested in being part of the community.sasslers thing that allows you to post suggestions for integrations that you'd like to see or modifications to the platform, that you can reach out to either Alex or Connor or Anthony if you'd like, and we can get you added to that. And ideally, we do see down the road the ability for you guys to say, hey, here's a rule thing that I think would be handy, and we can leverage that as a way to get templates rolling too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's questions flowing through as to how we would share them. And today it would be through that SASE community component. I think what Ben is driving at is, for instance, if we gave you guys a grammar and told you, you can write out a new rule in JSON and we'll give you an import feature. I think that's what you're asking for, right, Ben?
That'd be awesome. Yeah. I was behind LionGuard when they were pushing that sharing community. And so I was working with them closely to get that out so people can come up with different metrics they can monitor. And I see the same thing happening with Sasslers. So I think that'd be great.
Cool. Chip, what are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely doable. I mean, creating, as long as we structure it in such a way that a new rule presented in JSON for an upload would have to be formatted according to some specific key value pairs. We could do that and create an import. We have a lot on our plate development wise, so I don't want to make any promises for when we would have that in place. But I certainly think it's a good idea.
Cool.
Safe assumption we'd have a resource internally vet it before we slapped it out there for the world.
Yes.
I have a question.
May I make a question?
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you. Two things. One, could you add an attribute to when you open the community up for rules that would say validated or verified by SAS alerts? So that there would kind of like, hey, someone makes a rule suggestion. That's great. It's kind of like it needs to be one that is taken with a grain of salt, right? But if it's validated by SAS alerts, that gives a level of authenticity or validation, right? The second request that I would have is that you're doing wonderfully around creating expertise and understanding of the technical part of this. Would you guys consider a monthly sales? Here's how we're finding most effective to do sales with SaaS alerts, and get that process going. I really enjoyed what Andrew was going through, the little role playing piece, and having something for us that are developing this skill set around SaaS alerts. This is specific to SaaS alert sales. I think would be wonderful.
Yes, definitely happy to do that. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I guess I'll speak for Chip on this one because I suspect I already know what he's thinking. I don't think on the verification, SaaS source verified rule, I don't think we would allow any rule to go up on SaaS source that wasn't SaaS source verified.
Okay, I don't know how the community would work, because with Automation Exchange, we could publish, but you wouldn't know what you're getting. And
Right.
you'd have to import it into a temporary location to kind of validate it first.
Exactly.
And that's kind of where I was wanting to make sure I didn't have to, there's not a way to do that with SaaS alerts in effect.
Right.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Andy, what we would do, let's say that this was an enormous success and initially started off as a trickle where we had a couple of rules a month that came in. That wouldn't be particularly difficult for us to manage. We actually have a very, very active QA process that would allow us to write an automated test for a rule to make sure that it works. Now, validating the consequences of a rule on an account is a little different, right? Because that comes down to the individual account holder and customer organization and MSP. That's something that you guys would need to be thoughtful about on
Chip,
your own. All that we would be able to validate is the technical accuracy of the rule.
Yeah, and that lends itself to a final piece for the community, and that is, what does this rule accomplish? Give me a meta explanation of it so that we can make some adjustments, because just seeing the JSON or just seeing the rule itself, it may not, hey, this is what we found does this, solves this problem, or identifies these threats.
Right. I mean, I suspect what we could do is essentially people could upvote and downvote different templates, right? So
that's exactly where it's going to go with it. If it went from a trickle to a flow, we would want the community to actually self-select which templates they wanted to be submitted for validation by SaaS alerts.
And I would encourage you to do something like the blue check mark so it never gets abused, right? In other words, hey, Ben, as an example, he's done so many of these submissions. His submissions are typically perfect, right? And here's Andy, he's submitting one for the first time. Take this with a grain of salt,
Yeah.
Well, in order to validate, you have to make you all put a DNS text record in so you prove your identity.
There you go.
I'm just kidding.
But I'm just trying to say, having some way to evaluate this as well. And I just use I don't want it to cost us an additional $8 a month either, but I think some way of saying, hey, look, we really are participants and we value, and that these are all ways of, I think, adding value to the community.
Great. Really good suggestions.
Do you think this is where we could use like something like a canny.io to upvote and downvote stuff?
That's what the community is now. We're leveraging a different platform, but it's invite only at the moment, and we want to build that out. Maybe, I'm not sure what the capabilities are. Liron and I will have to talk, but maybe actually build one out that's respond specific for rules versus just platform upgrades and requests.
Sounds good.
Yeah, let's charge $8 for the check marks.
I mean, I heard it works for some platforms.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what's interesting is that the Automation Exchange at Kaseya, Kaseya didn't collect any money from that, but they allowed other people to actually make money from it. They were able to post different scripts that people found really beneficial, and if they wanted to charge for them, they could. So I don't know if we'll ever get there, but interesting concept for those that You know, Ben could make a fortune if he wanted to sell his scripts.
I mean, I already have a GitHub page. I throw whatever coding I do on that. So I mean, I'm all here for you guys.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, well, this will get even more exciting on April 19th, when you see what is coming in Unify, and when you can actually combine the Unify data with the Respond version 3 piece. Like I said, goosebumps before.
Good stuff, Jim. Good stuff. Jim, just asking the community things, you know, we've covered a lot, you know, since we've started this, things that you guys might want to see that, you know, have come to mind since we've been doing enablement, obviously talking about the products. Anything come to mind that you're really is a top initiative in your MSP that you feel we could help?
Now the SASE MSP community is officially 6 months old, Andrew. We've been doing it for 6 months.
That's incredible. I can't believe it's gone 6 months already.
Yeah.
It's blown.
So, yeah. Our little baby's getting all grown up.
I know. We're hitting 50 plus consistently too.
Yeah.
I was typing it, but we'll run out of time by the time I type it. I like today's how SaaS alerts can help us get past the guard gate, the guardian at the front, and get into those first few sentences. If you get past the guard or the gatekeeper, sorry, and you get to the manager before you get to the CPA or lawyer, you know, there has to be unique catered wording for each person to, in their mind, think, okay, I'm not going to get yelled at if I pass you up the line. So the gatekeepers, I've gotten that one. Then you get the office manager like, oh yeah, I'll tell them, and that's where there's kind of a disconnect, because they never say, hold on, let me put them on the phone. Like, I'll relay that. I'm the office manager. Okay, well, you seem enthused about it. Yeah, they said no. Like, yeah. But what I mean is that whole thing is like why all these regulations are coming out. You know, that whole thing is why the government has to get involved. And it's like, if we can crack the code, we can really help that. But I don't know if there's a code to crack.
Right. Well,
they don't have the mindset because they don't know, but they don't want to know.
Yeah.
Kind of, you know, simplify it.
So
today's talk is educational, because everyone we talked about later for the sales methodology and how we're speaking to them. You bring in John Barrows and all that. Yeah, there's a plethora of that information available, but there's not of that first critical, trust me, you don't know me, but trust me kind of thing.
Right. So there's nobody better, in my opinion, than John Barrows in terms of the structure associated with getting past gatekeepers. And he's got a proven methodology for it. Andrew and I have been talking, because he's a friend of both of ours, about how we incorporate him into this community. And so this is kind of a natural segue. So if we can essentially work with him, get him to understand some of the things that we're doing on the insight side, and then combine that with the methodology, I think we could give you guys some really powerful stuff to work with. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. At the net of it is, again, Jim, I think we can bring great content, great value for the community. It's going to take you doing things you don't want to do. So just keep that in mind. Embrace the suck, as they say. And, you know,
David Goggins.
Yep.
Yep. And just realize that, in your, the thing you mentioned, Scott, like, okay, well, if we know gatekeepers are stopping us, that means maybe we're going to do a phone call, 10 of our phone calls between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning, and 10 of our phone calls after 5, when we know gatekeepers are gone. Right. So we've got to be creative. We've got to be resourceful, and, do the things that, again, most people don't want to do. So.
Exactly. Okay, that brings us to top of the hour here.
Yeah.
Andrew. Quickest hour of the week.
It's a great hour, and thanks for the opportunity, Jim. Thank you all for joining, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Thursday, right, Jim?
Yep. Can't wait.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
Take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.